Hi, everyone, and welcome to my knitting podcast number 2. And I'm glad to share with you my chaotic way of explaining things and talking about knitting. I have few finished projects to talk about, for example, this beautiful Halibut sweater and a few other ones. And also, I have lots of whips, a lot of them. I also have a bird who is screeching in the background because it's a spring season. I would not go to tangents that don't ever get a bird because you're gonna regret it every spring. But anyway, let's get going. I think I have 3 finished projects. Technically, I only had 1 project that I finished in the last couple of weeks. This is the Halibut sweater. This was my first color work. I was so excited to start it. I actually enjoyed knitting it. I was dreading trying the color work for years, and it was actually easier than I expected. I will talk about it. I think I finished it in less than a month. I think I didn't need anything else. I was just focused on this project. I started in late January and finished it late February, less than a month. My fastest project, which probably proved something to me that if I only have 1 project on my needles, I'm way more efficient. So I need to consider that. And second project and my third project, you probably saw these items. So I have a video about all my unfinished projects. Some of those projects are dated to 2021, 2022, 2023. So I finally decided to get rid of these projects. And my goal was to maybe spend the whole month of March trying to finish those projects. And I only succeeded, finished 2. The ones that I had there was almost nothing to finish. Anyway, so the project number 2 is this gigantic blanket. So this is this very fluffy, very cozy Alpaca something else yarn, and it's extremely warm. It's also very lightweight. And what I like about it, so I live in California. We don't really need warm stuff, but actually we do need it. So the way how it goes, because I live in North Cal by the coast, so it gets cold randomly. It can be one day I'm wearing a t-shirt and the next day I'm wearing Halibut sweater and a jacket and I need a blanket because it's extremely cold and the house is very cold as well. So I like this blanket because it's very compact. So technically I can just push it like this and push it in some basket or take it away if I don't need it. And then when I get cold, it's easy because I hate those gigantic blankets that take too much space. So I really like it. I'm glad I finished it. I finally used that yarn. And if you heard me talking about this in my previous video, I said that I didn't quite like this yarn, to use in garments because I didn't like that color, but the blanket, that was the best decision. And the third project, it also came from my unfinished projects from, I think, a year ago. It's a gigantic cardigan. I probably have to wear it to show you. I don't know if I'll be able to put it on. Technically, I still need to weave some ends, but I will do it after I wash it. I haven't washed it yet, so it's the stitches are a little bit uneven. So it's very long, cozy cardigan. The idea is that sometimes when I wake up, I'm in my pajamas, and let's say I need to get out to walk my dog, or I need to go to the car, and I don't want to change from my pajamas to something else, so I can just put this nice thing. It's almost like a coat, bathrobe, and stuff like this. Okay, while I was editing the video, I realized I actually finished another project. I always forget about the small ones. Remember those mittens I showed you in the first podcast? So I actually redid them because remember how I was saying it was really tight? So I decided okay, let's just redo it. I think I took needles that are a little bit bigger in gauge, so I had the same amount of stitches, just a slightly bigger needles. Yeah, so this is a top-down construction. So I started here, knitted in around. Then I added this part and I knitted all the way there. I talked about them in my first podcast, so I guess there is no need to talk about them more. And this was some leftover yarn that I had from long time ago. And as usual, all the information will be on the screen. I'm going to talk about each of these projects in detail, probably the way how I'm going to make it this time, because I don't know if everyone has time to watch through 1 hour of my blubbering. So what we're going to do now, we're going to move to my whips and unfinished projects now. But after that, somewhere in the end of this video, I'm going to talk in detail about the Halibut sweater. So if you're interested in this pattern, it's going to be somewhere in the end. I'm going to talk what yarn I used, what alterations, all my thoughts about this project. Now we're talking about my current projects, some plans, ideas, inspirations, everything that I'm currently working on or about to start working on. I guess let's start with the biggest one. As many of you already know, this is a wave sweater by Spektakelstrik. When I started working on this project, I was actually debating what colors to choose, and I had many ideas. First of all, I knew it has to be something extremely bright, like it should be the brightest item I have in my wardrobe because it has this weird shape, so weird pattern, so it has to look also very striking. And I saw lots of good ideas. I liked light pink with some like bottle green. I like white and bright blue. I liked white and bright red, and or maybe like fuchsia and bright neon orange. So I had many ideas, and I will put some of the pictures on the screen in case if you're also thinking about the sweater and you need some inspiration. So I actually finished the yoke. I don't know. I think I started like a month ago, maybe less. This is the beautiful yarn I'm using. So this is a merino yarn. As usual, this yarn is made for knitting machines. It's extremely thin. So I'm actually using, I think, 4 of each. Yeah, I'm using 4 strands of each, and it is actually a pain in the ass to knit with so many yarns. I always find the most difficult yarn. So, you know how I talked about this project and I said it was a very easy color work. It was my first project, but it was so simple. So, I don't know, it was just a pleasure to work. This one is pain in the ass. So this yarn is more glossy. It has like, so many strands. I'm constantly grabbing the wrong strand. I have hard time maintaining the tension. I just literally like struggling. And also the problem is I know that this yarn gonna bloom a little bit. So now I'm actually debating whether I should wash it and see how much blooming of the yarn gonna happen, just to see whether it will even, because right now the stitches look horrible. Just to see if the stitch is gonna be, more even, or if I should just unravel and I think the theme of today's podcast is let's just unravel everything. Just, I don't know. I'm kind of concerned since I used obviously a lot of this yarn. I feel like it's actually very thick, and now I'm super concerned that it's going to be too warm. And if it's going to be too warm, I wouldn't be able to wear it because I live in California. So right now it's like a 4. I don't know if you can even see. But basically, it's like 4 strands, like a 4 lace strands of each yarn. But if I use less strands, I will not match the gauge, and also, everything will be more thin. So I don't know. I'm kind of confused. Another thing that I'm confused about it, that as usual, this yoke is extremely long. And with me, actually, I didn't measure it. I'm going to measure it right now. So it's more than 30 centimeters. You know how I said that this one is 30 centimeters and it's too long? So this one is like almost 40. Based on the pattern, you have to do like 2. Okay, could you perch? Yeah, so based on the pattern, you do like 2 repeats of the waves until you split for the shoulders and main piece. So you can't, I guess you technically can split before that, but I would assume it will kind of fuck up the whole look. So you have to do it. So now I'm thinking, like, in case I decide to redo it, I haven't decided yet. I guess I will have to remove few rows here and here, or I just have to keep it this long. I mean, if you look at the initial picture made by the designer of this garment, I guess it's supposed to be extremely oversized, which I don't mind. I just don't know. It just sucks to be a short person. So another reason why I want to redo it. If you actually are familiar with this pattern, and if you look at the photos, you will notice that these waves, obviously they're not continuous. It's not a round yoke. It's gonna be interesting to make a round yoke. But obviously you have a raglan line, so it breaks at the line of raglan. And in the initial design, those wave patterns, they don't really match together. So what I decided to do, I decided to somehow match them. I actually somewhat matched it to the best of my ability, so you see it's like comes together. But now I made a mistake. So here, this is the beginning of the pattern of this one. So it is supposed to be here, but it just doesn't look good when it's here. So technically, if I would redo, I would probably get rid of this one. Okay, let's talk about the patterns. I'm showing this. So the pattern is very simple. I think it's 2 or 3 pages, so it has no very detailed explanations. So if it's going to be your first color work project, if you like challenge, you will figure it out. If you don't like challenge, you're probably going to struggle. I don't know. For example, there is no no chart, there is no schematic. So you do increase every other row, and you have to start in some increases. You have to start a color change, and you have to figure it out by yourself. So the pattern has no. They just tell you now do the chart. And they just tell you, like how you start the chart, but you have to figure out. Since I was doing some alterations, I had to draw this picture. So this is the front piece, the back piece, and the sleeve. So I actually used the stitch fiddle to recreate all this design. First of all, because I wanted my pattern to match, and also I wanted to have a help because I knew like when I will be knitting and doing like all this increases, I will at some point get completely lost and make mistakes. And even with the chart, I did a couple of mistakes, but at least they were easy to spot because I would usually spot them the next row. I don't know how people do it without something like this, and to be honest, on their chart. So for example, if I was designer for this item, I would definitely provide people with the chart. Did it take time to make it? Yeah, I spent the whole evening recreating this chart. And if I had, let's say, like, if I'm a designer, I have like 5, 10, 6 sizes, I will have obviously recreate for each design. But come on, you just spend one day making it, and then it will be so much easier for people. But at the same time, I understand like some designers, they don't really cater to people who are beginners. They cater to, for example, I don't have problems with the pattern being only 2-3 pages. I hate row by row instructions because I don't need them. I understand some other people need. I usually just skip them. But not having something as simple as chart, that annoys me. So I prefer instructions to have chart. So if you're the person who plans to create your own pattern, and if you want feedback, I say always provide charts and always provide schematic. What else did I do about this? I actually, as I said, did lots of alterations. For example, I did more short rows on the neckline shaping, because when I looked at pictures, I noticed that many wave sweaters, they kind of like riding up and bunching up in front. Also, like the neckline doesn't look very round, looks like a little bit too square. I don't know, maybe some people didn't do short rows in the back. That's why it doesn't look good. So you can see, okay, unfortunately it's curling a little bit, so it's hard to see. So you see there is more orange in the back than in the front, because that's where I was doing my shaping. Also, my neckline is much more round. Actually, let me put it on. So initial design does have some short rows, but I think they only have maybe 3 rows of short rows. Yeah, so I wanted my neckline to be very open. I hate when the sweaters ride up too much. Also, if you don't do the short rows, your back going to be much shorter than the front, which I didn't want either. So, and also I guess I have to comment on this part. This is not the final part. So what I did actually provisional cast on. So usually when I do raglans, I never start with the neckline. I always start with the provisional cast on. So I leave the open stitches. And after I finish most of the garment, and after I realize like, okay, this is what I want this garment to look like, after that, I will add the finishing, and I will either add, the crew neck, or what I also often do, I will decide in the end. So sometimes I start with the project thinking like, oh, I'm going to do a mock rib, or I'm going to do like a higher neckline. But then I'm like, I don't want higher, or maybe I don't have enough yarn. So that's why I always do provisional cast on. So basically the way how I do the provisional cast on, I take my hook and I chain as many stitches as I need. Then I, pick up stitches from the chain. I don't know, maybe it's not the best explanation. When I unravel this, I will actually have a row of open stitches. Right now, my plan is to do like a high neck, since this is going to be quite warm sweater. And also the yarn is very soft. This is another actual reason. After I finish working with this yarn for a while, I can tell like, okay, is it going to be comfortable for me to have like a long neckline? Because I have sensitive skin. Yeah, so this one, I think if I have enough yarn, I will make as long neckline as possible. Yeah, so I think I did a good job on making the front neckline better, like more scooped. But if I'm gonna redo it, I'm probably gonna add even more short rows. Also, the way how initially the outer does the short rows and the neckline shaping, I didn't quite like it, because they start from the back and then they go to the front, they go back, and then I don't know, like just the way how they do short row shaping, I don't quite agree with that approach. So I actually did it completely different. So basically, what did I even follow in this pattern? I didn't follow the size much. I think I did my own number of stitches. I didn't follow neckline. I didn't really follow the chart because, I tried to match my own waves. Basically, I only followed the chart for the wave. That's it. Out of the whole project and the whole idea. I mean, technically, when I was thinking about this project, I didn't even feel a need to buy this pattern, because I was like, anyway, I'm going to change everything. But sometimes when I see some unique designs, some creative things, I want to still buy the pattern, even if I'm not quite follow it, just because I want to support this designer, because I think it's something creative. I want them to create more creative things. So basically, I paid for the idea, not for the construction per se, or not for the detailed instructions for the construction. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, in my next video, I hope I will show show you the wave sweater. I'm trying not to start too many projects because this color work is not a joy like this one. So I'm afraid if I abandon it, I will never finish it. It's kind of interesting that you would think that this will be a fun project to knit, but the cool part, it's actually very easy to knit because after you shape, these round parts, basically for like 20 rows or something like this, you just do like, 3 stitches of green, 4 stitches of orange, 3 stitches of green, 4 stitches of orange. And it's super easy. You don't need to look at the chart. It's like such an easy project. But at some point, I was so annoyed by repetitiveness. I'm like, you know what? If I'm doing something repetitive, let me just do stockinette stitch in one color, because like the whole tension, trying to like keep the floats in the right tension is just so annoying. I actually realized I prefer more complicated color works or no color work at all. I don't need easy color work. I need interesting color works. This is something, to discover. I don't know. So I have weird feelings about this project. I'm super excited about it. I want to have it. I actually ordered yarn specifically for this project. I love the yarn. I love everything about it, but I don't enjoy knitting it. At the same time, I don't mind unraveling it. Like sometimes you don't enjoy knitting it and you just want to finish it as fast as possible. But in this case, I'm ready to suffer because I want to have a good garment. Anyway, I hope by next time I have my podcast number 3, I will have something to show you. So this is the main project I was working on. The second project I was working on is this one. You're not gonna see much. Actually, you might see something. Yeah, this is like a very special project. And this yarn, it's a cashmere yarn. It's also a dead stock. It's from Laura Piana. It comes on the cone because this is the yarn technically for people who do machine knitting, but I use it for hand knitting. Also because it's cheaper this way. For example, cashmere is extremely expensive, but it was like 450 grams, which is around 1 pound. And I paid $80, which is a lot. But cashmere yarn is expensive. Since it's a cashmere, I was debating like what project to use it for, because obviously since it's very expensive yarn, I want to make sure this is like something that can be basic. So something that I'm gonna be easily styling with everything, that I can wear as much as I want, something that's gonna last me forever. It's not like something like a wave sweater, because like, I don't know, right now I like it. What if I get tired of it? So I didn't want this. I wanted something more. I just hope my logic is correct, that if it's something more basic, there is more likely the chance I'm going to be wearing it, no matter the season, no matter the fashion, no matter what my taste is. So I decided to self-draft it, and this is basically cables. And so you get like 1 row of stockinette stitch, then you get like a cable row and then in between you have a purling. I was inspired by some similar designs that I saw on internet, because I was like, okay, what can I do with this? And I was like just Googling like green cashmere sweater. That's usually how I do it. If I don't know what to do out of it, I just start with some stupid prompt like green cashmere sweater or oversized cable cashmere sweater. And then I see what, internet shows me. And then based on that, I readjust my prompt. And this is how I saw a bunch of ideas from some brands that they use this type of cable. And I just looked at the picture, I zoomed in as much as I could, just counted the stitches, and that's how I came up with the fact that I'm gonna have like 4 stitches for stockinette, then 2 stitches for purling in between, and then 8 stitches for the cable. I'm doing cable every, I think, 14 row. This yarn is not super thin, but relatively thin. So I'm holding 2 strands. I'm like, okay, let me do something oversized. And this is my sweater. It's supposed to be extremely oversized. But then when I finished it, I looked at my yarn and I was like, I don't know why I was thinking I have more than this yarn. I actually don't have more than this. And then I realized that I don't have enough yarn. I was always thinking that cashmere yarn, it's always blooms, so you don't need much of it. But I realized it's not blooming as much, but I still, for some reason, was thinking like somehow it will bloom out. but it doesn't. So then I started doing my crazy math. So basically what I did, I was like, okay, I need to figure out, is it enough yarn or not? How many centimeters it is wide? How many centimeters it is long? I weighted it, separated into squares. I have to show you this one. This is my initial sample. This is the dimensions. And I separated into little squares. And I was like, okay, how much yarn I need for each square? And then I recreated like, okay, this is how many squares I need for the front. This is how many squares I need for the sleeves. And then I, multiplied how many pieces I need, estimated how many grams of this yarn I need. And I'm like, I'm missing 60 grams. I will definitely not be able, maybe even more grams. I was like, definitely not going to be enough. So what I did next, I decided to do a more tight-fitting garment. And I started again. So I started it. I'm going to actually make it. Then I'm going to try it. If I don't like it, because I usually don't wear tight-fitting garments, I'm just going to unravel it. And I'm just going to order more yarn. But I don't want to order more because it's already expensive yarn. Plus, I don't even know if the color will match. But anyway, yeah. So I'm like in this like weird situation. But I have to say that these cables, they're so easy to knit. They're such a pleasure, especially compared to wave sweater. I was like, I think I knitted it in a couple of evenings when I was getting a rest from that sweater. So anyway, so this is my plan. So for a while, I wanted to have cropped cardigan, tight-fitting cropped cardigan with like a crew neck. You know, the type of cardigan that you has buttons, but you never open it. You just wear it as almost like as a sweater. And I have some reference for it. I will add it on the screen. So maybe I will actually unravel the whole. I told you it's an unraveling blog. I'm gonna unravel the whole thing, make a cardigan out of it. So these are two main projects I'm working on right now. The projects that you haven't seen yet in my channel. And also I have a bunch of unfinished freaking projects that you probably saw in my previous videos. So for example, oh my God, okay, it's a mess. No, please don't do this to me. If you watched my first, was it? Yeah, I think it was in my first vlog. I showed you this. So this is supposed to be like a pillowcase, basically this set. I like doing crochet, but I don't like putting these little pieces together. So I'm slowly working on this project. I probably need a couple of, pieces in a month when I just want to have a rest from my knitting and just do crochet instead. But I'm slowly progressing. So what I do, as soon as I finish a couple of pieces, I immediately add them to the main part because just not as annoying. And I don't know, it turns out really cute, I think. Yeah, this is would be actually also a cute blanket, which I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I keep going and make a blanket. No, I don't want to do a blanket. Look how many ends you have to weave. But if you do a pillowcase, you don't need to weave in those ends. I actually almost finished. So this is my side. And now we're going to do one side. The other side will be just some fabric. Yeah, so you see, I almost finished. Now I need to do pieces that are like half, quarter and stuff like this. So it's almost done. So I hope next month I will. This is the longest project, but I'm not a very fast crocheter. And then the next project, another project that was from the old UFOs. I actually finished it. Okay, almost finished it. Let me show you. No, of course it's not finished, but at least I'm finished the knitting part. Now I actually need to, finalize it. So it has this. I don't know. It's not a hoodie. Actually, maybe I should make a hoodie out of it. Wait, just realized I can make a hoodie. Yeah. So initially it was supposed to be zip sweater. And then I had this crazy idea that I make it like the collar, I make it double. Yeah, so I make it double, so it's kind of like very thick neckline. And I'm mostly gonna wear it open. But then I got stuck because I didn't have a zip. And finally I went to the store and got the zip. I actually went to Joann's closing. Since the zips were on sale, I bought a bunch of zips. They didn't have my color, and I have no idea where to get a right zip. Maybe I'll have to order online. So I just they had these 4 colors and I got them. So either I have to do something extremely crazy or more or less neutral or something. So none of these colors, as you can see, match. So my idea was like either it has to be something absolutely crazy that's just bright. And I feel like into orange, but I feel it's like too much. Or I just do blue. I guess I do blue. First I wanted some like contrast color, but now I don't think so anymore. And since I can't make a decision, Macho, you're so disrespectful. Come here. Why are you such a disrespectful bird? Can you be on my shoulder at least? You're being such a pest. Yeah, probably this color. I feel like it's still a little bit bright. I guess I have to find something gray or like, let's say like this color, like, or brown. I don't know. That's why I'm a little bit stuck whether I should continue or not. Because my idea is that I'm mostly going to wear it with an open zip. Yeah, so the idea is like it's going to be open like that. Okay, it's a little bit unorganized. I don't know if you can even see. So it's going to be open. It's like nice and fluffy. So if it's cold, I can really close it. And it's actually going to be a vest because I don't really have enough yarn for the sleeves. And I'm just going to keep it like this. So I'm almost finished. Actually, this was one of the first projects that I finished together with the blanket and pink cardigan. But sometimes I'm 98% or 99. Are you eating something? Come here. Stop. No eating. No eat. Don't eat. Don't eat anything. Yeah, so sometimes it happens that I'm almost done, but I have to do this like finishing details, like weave some ends. And actually, to be honest, I'm already weaving some ends. I show you. Go. So look at this amount of, and I still have, see, a lot to go. So technically, I already did lots of weaving ends, and I still have so more to go. I usually don't mind weaving ends, but then there are these few projects when I get completely stuck and I just don't do anything with the ends. Anyway, it's almost finished. I need to find courage to finish it. Okay, there is one more project I'm working on since God knows when. Oh my God, I hate this project. Anyway, I almost finished it. I finally made a tail. I finally made a head. Or how does it go? It goes like this. I even made the ears, but I already lost them somewhere because I decided to abandon this project. But then something went wrong. So this is the body, and this is the head. Don't you think the head is a little bit too small? Does it look too small? He looks like a weird, like a weird giant with a tiny head. And I don't know what went wrong, but definitely something went wrong. So now I'm debating okay, so I like the tail. The tail looks cute. Look at the tail. Look how cute is the tail. Also, remember in my first podcast, I complained that this yarn is very see-through. You see how you can see the poly feel and it annoys the crap out of me. But then when you look at the tail, look how nice looks the tail. So look how the see-through is the body and how good is the tail. The same with the head. Look how nice looks the head. Look how nice it is. And then look at this body. So you know what I realized? That I used the 2-ply yarn here, and I don't know why I used 1-ply. So basically I used one strand of this yarn and it's too thin. The problem is that I don't have any of this yarn left. It was just a leftover. So my plan currently is that I just gonna use, either I have to unravel it, which is annoying me, or I just have maybe to use this gray. I have a lot of this gray yarn, this like gray yarn that I use for parts. Maybe I just take the gray yarn and redo the body because I guess the body has to be smaller, or I have to redo the head, but I don't have any more of this yarn to redo the head. So I don't know, or maybe, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. I was thinking when I started, it's going to be such an easy project. It's just a toy, but this toy sucks the life out of me. I don't like it anymore. Okay, so this is for the current projects, and I have lots of plans. I did lots of swatching. I did lots of pattern shopping, ideas shopping, and stuff like this. Also, if you haven't seen it yet, maybe you're new to this channel, I just posted a video about my knitting inspirations. If you're looking for new ideas, new patterns, go there. But right now, I want to show you, actually, how many? I think I bought 3 patterns. Yeah, so I bought the wave sweater, I bought the champagne sweater from Sari Nordlund, and also I bought a rosemary, or in Russian it's called rosmarin sweater by, anyway, it's a Russian designer, it's not in English. Yeah, so in terms of champagne pullover, I did lots of swatches. This is swatch number 1. I feel like it's too thin. This is actually utilizing this yarn that I told you about. It's a merino and silk. So it's not going to bloom. It's not like hairy, because initially Sari uses very like a hairy yarn. Some like fluffy, something either with more hair or something like alpaca. So I wasn't quite sure. So I feel like because it's merino silk, it's going to be very like flowy and it's going to be not very warm. So I was like, either I have to treat it as a summer project or I just have to use a different yarn. Then I made a swatch number 2. Actually, swatch number 2 I made out of cashmere. This was before I started this project. So this is my second. I don't know, I think it looks good on the video, or maybe it doesn't. But actually, it does not look very good in real life. It's almost like, kind of looks messy. Because, she has a little bit of lacing and cabling, and I feel like, show you maybe side by side. I just felt like this is not the best. It actually looks better on video than in real life. I don't know. So I'm still looking for a yarn. I don't want to order a yarn, but I don't know what yarn I'm going to use for this project. But recently, I thought about this yarn. So I had this project. There was one of the first year projects that I unraveled, and I tried to redo it, and then it was just stuck in UFO. But I still have this yarn. It's very fluffy. It's I think it's alpaca, maybe even undyed alpaca. It's like very natural alpaca, and I feel like this yarn will be good for this project. So I think I will make another swatch with this yarn because I really like this yarn. I have sentimental value to this yarn because it was one of my first projects. I paid a lot because I bought a kit because I didn't know any better back then. So I want to utilize, and it's also a very soft, nice alpaca. So I want to utilize it for something. So maybe that's going to be champagne. And my second pattern that I bought is a rosemary pattern. Also initially, because I was looking for something to use for my cashmere, so I did this sample. And again, it looks better in the video than in real life. It's like, I don't know, it just doesn't do justice to this particular pattern. And then I actually had another yarn that I bought only one skein for a hat or some like small project, but I realized this yarn works awesome in this rosemary. Yeah. So this is a carded, I think merino. Yeah, it's a carded merino and works so good. So I actually went ahead and ordered more of this yarn. It's supposed to arrive soon. And as soon as it arrives, I'm going to start this sweater. So for the rosemary sweater, I have yarn ordered. As soon as it arrives, and also as soon as I finish the wave sweater, that's going to be the next project I start. This yarn is, it's actually blooms really nicely. It's very like a I don't know how to explain, like fluffy and hairy. And this is exactly the yarn you need for that particular project. Compared to this like silky yarn, let me actually show you the comparison. So I like to talk how yarns fit or don't fit certain projects, and I feel sometimes people think I'm crazy, but I'm not. I might not be able to explain myself. So this is the carded yarn, and this is another one. I don't know if you can see. So you see how you can not really see the design clearly, and here it's very like, I don't know, it just looks so neat, made by the same person, but this one looks more neat. Yeah, so I'm gonna use this yarn. Actually, when we talk about this cashmere, look how many samples I did. Swatches. Swatch number 1, swatch number 2, swatch number 3. And actually this swatch has two designs. Because first I was thinking to go with one strand of yarn, and I decided to do thick one. Anyway, yeah, so I'm working on another project. It's going to be more long-term project for reasons I will not disclose yet. So if you watch a bunch of my videos, you know I'm constantly talking about making a polo shirt, crochet polo shirt, knitted polo shirt. And there is something about me, I don't know, recently I'm like obsessed with that. So I still, it's crazy. I already looked through so many patterns for the crochet shirt, and I still didn't decide which pattern I'm going to use. And I don't even have a yarn. I need to order yarn. So this is probably going to be a long-lasting project. Also, okay, come here, my disrespectful bird. Macha, why are you constantly flying to me? He wants me to hold him like that. I need my hand to talk. You understand that? I also wanted to make like a shirt using my knitting machine. And I made a couple of swatches. I was actually... Okay, the swatches don't look very good. Unfortunately, I didn't, they were in the bag and I didn't iron them. So it has this very interesting pattern. This is just one of the samples. I probably need to make a tension a little bit tighter. I also tried from this yarn. So I don't know if you get the idea. Technically, it goes like this. So I still need to work on samples. I made a bunch of samples, but I don't quite like them. So I probably need to do more. But anyway, so I'm working on different patterns, like interesting patterns like that can utilize the knitting machine. And I will actually add you a photo, like a reference, what I'm trying to do. It's a long way to go, but I'm gonna add the reference on the screen so you can see what kind of design I'm looking to do. And this is going to be my like summer project. And for this one, it's going to be obviously a self-drafted project, so it's going to take a time. Okay, let's talk about each of these projects in detail, go into some technical parts, like, for example, Halibut sweater, what size I needed, what yarn, and also I never remember what yarn I used or what needles or what sizes. So I'm gonna look in my notes. I actually prepared today, a little bit prepared. And also whatever information I'm not saying because I don't remember it or I can't find it real quick or I forgot to prepare it, it will be on the screen as well in the description. So if you are one of those people, I'm that person. I usually like to go see what people are doing. This is a good time to go check the screen. Okay, let's start talking about each garment construction and stuff. So this particular cardigan, it's not following any pattern. It's actually self-drafted. And I mean, it's a very simple construction. It's top down. The way how it's done, those top downs when you start with the back and then you slowly create the shoulders and you just knit down. The reason I did it because I wanted as long as possible. I also wanted to use up all the yarn that I had and I wasn't sure if I will do the right math. I used a lot of yarn for this because this is 100% merino. It's a bobbin yarn, the yarn that comes on a cone. The name of the yarn is Millefili Lori Felt and it's like 250 meters on 100 grams, and I used 950 grams. So I used almost 2 pounds of yarn for this. That's why it's like so heavy. And I used around 2,300 meters on this. So this is a lot of yarn. I did a couple of mistakes with it. First of all, so if you look at the shoulder, so this is how, this is the back, and this is like a shoulder that I think Petite Knit uses a lot. And I think I followed the pattern. I did a sweater from Sadness Garn, and I just used the same construction like they did. But to be honest, I feel now that was a disastrous idea because it's a very heavy cardigan, and I believe that for long and very heavy cardigans, you need seams. You need a shoulder seam and you need side seams. Otherwise, the whole construction gets very like wobbly. Problem with this cardigan, it doesn't sit on the shoulder. It constantly tries to slide down, especially the fact that the seam is a little bit crooked, it's in the back. I don't know actually how it's called. I know in Russia they call it Japanese shoulder. I don't know why, because it's actually mostly Scandinavian designers who use it. So it's, I don't know, Scandinavian shoulder. I think some people call it European shoulder. So I have no idea. So if you know, let me know, because in Russia we call it Japanese shoulder. Yeah, so this was a bad idea. So the whole thing slides back all the time. Another problem with this that I majorly F-upped the length and the width of the sweater. So I wanted to be very oversized so I can put it on top of any other clothes. That was the idea. But I ended up making it too big and I don't even know why and how. Actually, I don't know how. Anyway, so let me let me tell you. So this garment is 88 centimeters wide, 88, which is around 35 inches. And it has a positive ease. And when I say positive ease, it's the ease to the whole circumference, not just to the width, but to the whole thing. So it's 92 centimeters or 36 inches, 92 centimeters positive ease. So if you only take the half, it's going to be plus 40 centimeters. So it's a big one. The reason I think I didn't plan it to make so big. I was hoping it's going to be around 75 centimeters. But what I didn't count in that, I made very wide ribbing and I forgot to count it in. Also, I think when I was doing it, I don't know why, but I also added some, when you split for the shoulder and the main part, you pick up extra stitches. And I did pick up those stitches and I ended up just adding extra 5 centimeters here, 5 centimeters there. And actually for such a wide item, you don't need to, especially when it's very oversized, you don't need to pick up extra stitches. You just split shoulder and body and you just knit like that. You absolutely don't need it. So the only time you need, like let's say when you do top down and you need to split up for the shoulder and the body and you need to pick up some stitches, in your armpit, the only reason you need to do it if your shoulder, split is very close to your armpit. That's why you need extra, like extra stitches here so it's comfortable. But if your shoulder seam goes all the way to your, like in my case, it's my, how do you call it, elbow, to your elbow, you don't need, because here, it's like, it's very wide, you're not like bending anything as much. I don't know how to explain, but you just don't need it because we add those stitches for comfort. So that was a mistake. So I added stitches here and there, here and there. I just ended up with very wide item. I assume when I wash it, if I wash it, I mean, when I wash it. Tell you. I'm tell you later why I'm debating. Yeah, it might shrink a little bit, but still. Okay, that was a big mistake. Then I also made it very long, and then I didn't realize something. When you put 2 pounds of yarn or 1 kilo of yarn on yourself, it's gonna, no matter what your swatch tells you, your swatch is not gonna give you good measurements on how long the garment gonna be, because it's gonna go down and it's gonna stretch from its own weight. And I absolutely didn't think about it, which I should. Otherwise, I really like it. It took forever to knit, but I used I think 5 millimeter needles. Yeah, 5 millimeter needles. It was like a, easy project because you just knit, 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 knit. You don't need to think about anything. So it was my like a relaxation project, I think, in the last year. But the mistakes I did, that for some reason my tension is very tight. So now I'm thinking like, I don't even know why I used the 5 millimeter needle. I probably should use 6. And the way how I know that my thing is too tight, like you see how, I don't know if you can see, but you see how rippled the lines are? Usually that means that your stitches are too jammed together and they don't have enough space to open up. And also this yarn gonna bloom a little bit. So when I wash it, it's just gonna be too dense. So right now I'm actually debating. I'm finished this item. I already wore it. It's like super comfortable. It's really nice merino, but I really feel that I should have used slightly larger needles, because also if you knit something too tight, it has more, it will more likely felt. That's just how yarn works. Just will be felting much faster because the stitches are jammed together, so they're gonna start hugging each other and stuff like that, and just bond. We don't want this bonding. I'm just afraid it's just not gonna be good. Anyway, so I'm kind of debating what to do. It took me forever to knit, but I'm not afraid to unravel items, because what I realized about myself in the last couple of months, especially, that I actually enjoy the process of knitting. The knitting makes me focused. My mind is less distracted, less chaotic. I'm not like, my mind is not jumping from one thing to another. For example, if I need to listen to something long form, like I was doing lots of education last year and this year. So I had to listen to like 1 hour, 2 hour, like 3 hour long lectures. And unless I'm knitting and listening to it, I'm not able to focus. I'm constantly get distracted. I check my phone. I'm going to get up. I'm going to get coffee. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to clean my room. But if I'm knitting, it gives my brain something to do without, especially something simple like this, without actually like taking much capacity of that brain. And then what's left can actually successfully focus on my lecture. So this is the type of project I was doing. So I don't mind unraveling and redoing things, because I don't wear, since I live in California, I don't wear knit garments as much as I want to wear them. So I just enjoy the process. So instead of creating more and more knitted items that I don't have time to wear, I'm just redoing the ones I like. So I may redo this project, which is, I don't know. That's kind of crazy idea. A few things that I like about this project, because it was completely self-drafted. I never needed a cardigan. I never needed a long, like duster style, like coat style cardigan. So it was kind of interesting to try it. And again, I always have to remind myself, if you needed something for the first time, who told you that it has to be perfect immediately from the first time? That's not how things work. If you do something for the first time, it's normal that you have to few more times before you figure out how to do it. So I'm trying to embrace this like slow process, like, slow creation, instead of expecting every garment to turn out perfect from the first time. I'm trying to remind myself that I'm figuring out things. So it makes sense to unravel and redo, but I don't know, maybe not. So my plan is right now, this is the reason why I'm not washing it, because I'm afraid I'm going to wash it, it's going to start felting, and it's going to be extremely difficult to unravel. So I'm just wearing it as it is until I have time to figure out what I'm going to do about it. Either I just end up just having it, or maybe I unravel it. One thing that I like about this item, I finally figured out the length of the sleeve, because I'm always trying to make sleeves wider, but then when I'm making them, I panic, like, oh my God, that's too wide. And I start like doing decreases. And then I realized, like, okay, for example, this one, I was like, I don't know, I wanted it to be wider. Why did I make it so narrow? So I finally figured out what's my favorite width of the cuff. And let me check. So in centimeters, I realized I like my cuffs to be at least 18 to 20 centimeters wide. And if it's in inches, it's around 7 inches wide. That's my favorite cuffs now. At least I figured out that part. Okay, so what do I have else to tell you about this project? I guess that's it. There's nothing else. And in terms of how long it took me, I started it in March 2024, 1 year ago, and I was slowly knitted it. And then I think around July, I got tired of it and I abandoned it, and it was just sitting in my stash, and I finally finished it. I talked a little bit more about this project. I also showed you a little bit midway in videos if you check my unfinished projects video. So there's more about it in that. There it is. Okay, next one. Okay, let's talk about this blanket. It's made out of alpaca yarn. And it's actually interesting construction. I think there is a braid that's filled with fluffy pieces. I don't know how to explain. This yarn was in my stash for a while. It's fuzzy alpaca from We Are Knitters. I know this brand, I think, fell out of grace. Also, I think they're sold to the bigger company. Well, they used to be a small company. I actually never followed the controversy why people stopped liking it, but this was the first brand that was introduced to me when I started knitting. Quite often I was buying yarn from them, especially since they like to run 30%, 40% sales. And I have to say, for the money they charge, especially for the North American market, for the money they charge and the quality of yarn, I don't know how they're doing now, but back in the day, it was 2021 when I was buying them, this was a very high quality yarn. And this was before I was introduced to cone yarn, that is much cheaper usually. I used for this blanket something like 460 grams. It's, I think, 5 balls, and each ball is around 100 grams, which is something like 1,800 meters. It's actually very lightweight. I can't even believe that it's actually 400 grams. If I need to ever take a blanket with me somewhere, look how small it is. Imagine making a cardigan out of it compared to this cardigan that is much smaller than this blanket. And this cardigan is 1 kilo or 2 pounds. This is only 1 pound, half a kilo, even less than half a kilo. And look how much more compact it is. So if you need a compact cardigan, use fluffy, fuzzy yarn. Obviously, I didn't have a particular measurement in my head. I think I just cast it on approximate amounts of stitches, and then I just winged it. So something like 75 inches or 190 centimeters wide. So this is very simple construction, obviously self-drafted. It's just a stockinette stitch, and I used specifically a larger needle, 6.5 needle, something like that. And here I reinforced the side because I was afraid it's gonna just roll like this. I just reinforced by doing a 1 knit, 1 purl, 1 knit. I don't know, you can't even see it, to be honest. Yeah, just create more reinforced edge. And so if you have any yarn that, you don't want to roll, if you do the ribbing or any alternated stitching pattern, so any pattern that alternates knit and purls, this helps to keep the yarn straight. So if you have any yarn that gets kind of wonky, that's what you need. Okay, let's do the halibut. Okay, so the halibut, it's a Caitlin Hunter pattern that is called Halibut sweater. It's a round yoke and also has a quite long yoke. It's a color work. So this was actually my first color work, and as I said already, it was easier than I expected. But I think that the yarn choice and the pattern choice helped a lot. I used 2 types of yarn. The gray or graphite color yarn, it's a merino yarn. I don't know any information besides that because I bought it on a cone. And the white yarn, it's a very fluffy, very hairy yarn. And the fluffy, hairy yarn, this is the yarn I had in my stash since forever because I thrifted it for a particular project, but then I decided not to use it for that project because it just didn't work out for that project. It's wool and mohair mix, I think 50-50, and it says something heirloom Australian yarn. So in terms of the thickness of the yarn, the white one was 230 meters for 100 grams. And the black one, it was for 1 strand, it was 350 meters on 100 grams. And I was holding it 2 strands. Okay, just a little bit of technical information. So the sweater weight is 560 grams. And out of this, I think the white yarn, I only used 120 grams, which was, I think, 2.5 balls, something like that. And the gray yarn, I used around 440 grams. And in terms of length, yeah, so for the white yarn, I used around 280 meters, and for the gray, around 1500 meters. But it's a wide sweater, but it's short. So in terms of measurements, if I measure from armpit to armpit, it's 54 centimeters wide or 21 inches wide. And also, it's almost the same length because I almost make boxy items. Actually, it's a little bit longer. It's 65 in length and it's 25 inches in length. So, one more time, 54 by 65. I'm a short person. I'm 154 centimeters or around 5 feet tall, so I don't need longer items. This is actually a little bit longer than I usually do. In terms of positive ease, this one has 44 centimeters positive ease to total circumference, which is around 17 inches. So I would say this is my normal positive ease. I usually try not to make garments that are smaller than that. So 40 centimeters, that's what I usually try to get. So this is quite normal for me. This was actually relatively cheap to make because the thrifted yarn was extremely cheap. I think I only paid 10 or 15 bucks and I still have lots of that yarn left. And the gray yarn, it's a merino yarn and I bought it on a cone and it was like also some. So in total, I think I spent around like $35, which is amazing. Surprisingly, this yarn is not as itchy as I expected it to be because it has more hair, and also this gray one is actually very nice. And also, thankfully, I'm over my itch period, which is kind of nice. So now let's talk about pattern and all these things. First of all, I have to say that I had a hard time choosing the size because I was looking at pictures and most people had this sweater so tight on them. So I was really worried that the measurements are off or the pattern are off. I was a little bit paranoid about that. Eventually, I chose to do size 3, which is supposed to end up with 115 centimeters wide. Mine is a little bit bigger. But I think my gauge was off. And also I was adding extra stitches because I was paranoid it's not going to be wide enough. Because one thing about round yoke, I already mentioned in my previous videos, I don't like round yokes. I feel like they don't benefit me. They don't fit my style. And especially when I was doing my research, I realized that for the round yoke to look a little bit modern okay, I don't like to use these labels, but kind of for me to be able to fit it in my wardrobe, I realized it has to be oversized. So when the round yoke or any of these like rustic designs, old school designs, like traditional designs, if they're very oversized, they actually look way better than when they're tight fitting. Again, this is just my opinion. Don't come after me. And I will actually show you some references because I was looking on Pinterest and I was trying to see how people style the round yokes, and I actually have quite some good ideas. And I noticed especially some Korean knitwear designers or knitters, they actually style, or maybe even just fashion bloggers, I don't know, they might not be knitting it themselves, they actually style it really well. And so if you want to have a round yoke, but you feel like, oh, it's a little bit too rustic to fit it in, and if you do wear oversized garments, strive for as oversized as it is. I think my next yoke will be even more oversized. So this one was like 54 centimeters, which is nothing for me. I think next time I will make something like 70 centimeters. So I chose the size 3, but I did a little alteration because I have very narrow shoulders. So my figure is like triangular. So I have wide hips and very narrow shoulders. Especially they are narrow compared to my hips, and they even more narrow, I think, than my bust area. So I was a little bit worried if I need size 3, the neckline will be too big and the sweater gonna fall through my narrow. Okay, everything falls from my narrow shoulders. So this part is actually size 1, and then I just added some random stitches to make. So basically, I started by the stitch count that's required by size 1. And then how many more stitches I need to add here before I start the yoke so I can actually start with the size 3. This pattern has some, short row shaping to make the neckline better. You can see that, how like a back of the neck and the front, they're not together. That means it is a good amount of short rows. One thing I have to say, if I would do it now, I would probably make, so it's a mock rib, I think, neck. I would probably make it longer to cover my chin, because again, when I started looking at references, I realized they actually have longer one. But the problem, I hadn't had enough yarn, and I just didn't risk it. In terms of yarn choice, this was my first color work. I wasn't quite sure. And initially, when I bought the gray yarn, I also ordered from the same store a white yarn. But that white yarn was very slippery, very shiny, very glossy. So when I started doing samples, like swatches, I just realized it's so hard for me to work with it. And I almost abandoned this project. But then I started going through my stash, and I was like, wait, I have this yarn that is sitting there. And this was the best decision, because if you are starting your first color work, if you're struggling with color work, if you hate color work, try with the yarn that's very hairy, very fluffy, because what happens when you knit it, when I was knitting it, I was actually having a very loose gauge. I was using extremely larger needle. It was extremely loose, but then the stitches kind of come together. Also, ideally for color work, in my opinion, to use a yarn that's, like for example, carded yarn, that is actually blooms a lot. So you lose it very neat, and then you block it, like wash it, it blooms, and then everything comes together. That's why usually people use this rustic yarns. They use some like lead loppy or some like English, traditional yarns, because those yarns, the hairy ones, they can just I don't know, just become more blended. And I think when I did my first swatch, this is my first swatch, I actually struggled with tension. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, so this swatch I think I made on like 4.5 millimeter needle, and eventually I switched to 5.5 millimeter needles. This is, I think, was my second swatch. Also, since it was my first color work project, for the life of me, I couldn't figure out how to swatch. How do you swatch color work? So, and then turns out, so basically you only need right side, and then when you reach the end, you have to shift the whole work to the back of the needle, so you can start from the right side. So you don't need the wrong side, and then you just have all these things obviously hanging, because you're constantly switching back to the first stitch. It was kind of interesting. The only thing I kind of I kind of struggle make swatches like that, because my last 4 stitches become very loose. So explain to me, how do you swatch this type of swatching and keep these stitches not loose? I mean, I guess when you block it, but it's like, I see how loose it is. So yeah, I had a hard time doing the swatch. Oh, I just realized something. So when I was making the color work, I was actually holding this color and this color one strand. But when I was making the main part, I was holding it double. I just realized it now, because I think when I made the swatch, you could see how flimsy is the stockinette compared to the color work, because this fluffy yarn makes it really thick. So basically the black parts, I just kept double. Okay, I don't know, my chaotic explanation. So one thing, as I said, I like about this particular project as a first project, obviously because it's round yoke. Round yokes are a little bit easier to do, because everything is very symmetrical, everything is like repetitive. Also, the way how this actually pattern works, obviously you start from this part, it's very symmetric in the beginning. It only starts changing, like losing maybe like the last half, especially the last like third, it becomes less symmetric, a little bit more complicated. But by that time, you kind of get into groove of things. So when I started this color work, to make it easier for me, obviously I put markers between each, pattern repeat, and every row I would count stitches to make sure I'm not losing anything. Many people say just look at the at the pattern and just read the pattern and figure out what's next. For the life of me, I couldn't do that. So what I did, I would just remember the number. So for example, when I would start a new row, I would just look at the pattern and I would remember 2 blacks, 2 whites, 2 blacks, 2 whites, 2 blacks, 2 whites. And that's how I'm going to knit it. And then the next row will be like 3 blacks, 4 whites, 1 black, 1 white, 1 black, 1 white. I don't know. I know it's weird, but for me, it was easier to remember the numbers. And I would be knitting and like 4, 3, 1, 1, 1, 4, 3, 1, 1, 1. And the way how patterns create, it's actually very easy to remember. So if you are the person who can remember patterns like that, just numbers, maybe it will be easier for you. I don't know if I explained myself. If I didn't explain myself, ask me in the comments. Maybe I will make a more detailed explanation next time. Anyway, one thing I didn't like about this, how it turned out. So I was told when I was watching different tutorials on how to do color work, I was told to pick up stitches to pick up floats every 4 stitches, which I did. So you can see. So I was picking up my floats every 4, maximum 5 stitches. So let's say if I had to knit 6 blacks, I would catch white in the back after 3 stitches. If it would be like 8 stitches, then I would catch like 4 stitches, then I would catch a float another 4. If it would be something like 5, I would probably not catch it, or I would catch like 2, then 3. But what I ended up having, so now I'm thinking for my next project, I will try to do a project without catching any floats. So you see, I was catching a floats here, and you can see it, and it annoys the crap out of me. I was really hoping it's going to be somehow fixed when I finish it, when I wash it, but it didn't happen. Yeah, so I don't know. Also, okay, a few other alterations. When I started this neckline, I used a tubular cast on. I almost always use tubular cast on because it just looks more neat. Also, I don't like when my ribbing gets like too fluffy and loose. So I think I started, for example, like if the main part is knitted on the 5.5 needles, when I do a tubular cast on, I almost always start with 2.5 millimeter needles, then I go to 3.5, then I go to 4.5. So I always use at least, for the neckline, I use at least one size smaller, usually like 2 sizes smaller. And I usually use more than one size, which is, you may say that it's like a little bit, I don't know, overboard. But I believe that what makes the neckline neat, and it's gonna last longer. For example, this neckline, I don't have any elastic, I don't have anything. It just looks nice by itself. The same with the cuffs. I always use so you can see how nice this thing is. This is actually a pet peeve of mine. This one, I think I decided not to switch to the smaller size, and look how looser the bottom is. The reason I didn't switch because as I have very wide hips and larger butt for my size, I usually have problems with sweater that, nothing, so that it just bunches up. So that's why I like the sweater to hug my hips. So I usually for the bottom don't switch to the smaller size, but here I actually regret it because it becomes too loose. When I look at sweaters that other people need, or some of sweaters I needed in the very beginning of my journey, I think the biggest fallout is a cuff. So if you don't spend enough time making a nice cuff, first of all, what's going to happen eventually is going to stretch out and look kind of ugly, or you will have to do something with it. It will be uncomfortable because it will be kind of too loose, or it's just going to look crappy and give it that is a handmade item. Again, it's not that handmade is bad. I just feel like, I don't know, I like when the cuffs are nice. And I spend time to make nice cuffs by doing tubular cast on, cast off, and also switching to the smaller needles. So it's very neat. Anyway, another alteration that I did, I think about the sleeve. So as soon as I split it into sleeve and body, I didn't follow the pattern anymore. First of all, because my sweater is much shorter, and also I usually don't follow the decreases that the pattern recommends. I usually do my own measurements. I just decide like, okay, how many centimeters I want to decrease, and then I do the math. And in this case, I think I was doing decreases every 10 rows or something like that. So I think I only did 4 rows of decreases for each sleeve. And now I actually thinking I could even made it wider. This sleeve is, in case if you're interested, at the cuff, it's like 17 centimeters at the cuff before the ribbing, or 6.5. And then when I did the ribbing, since I switched to the smaller gauge needles, and it's actually a very stretchy yarn, it holds the ribbing very well, it actually became 13 centimeters to 5 inches. So it went from 17 to 12, from 7 to 5 inches. Yeah, so if you're the person who likes your cuffs to be more tighter, just switch to the needles that are 2 sizes smaller, maybe even 3 sizes. Sometimes I even do 3 sizes if I feel like the yarn doesn't hold the elasticity. Another thing that I noticed that many patterns on Ravelry, many projects on Ravelry have a very tight sleeves, and I couldn't figure out why. And my assumption is that either people forget to pick up stitches in the underarm, when you split to sleeve, you have to pick up stitches on the body, you have to pick up stitches on for your sleeve, and I think people forget it. Or maybe they just need a size that it's too small for them. So, and when I was knitting, I was really afraid that my sleeves will be too narrow. So I added even, I think, 3 or 4 extra stitches to make it wider because I didn't want narrow sleeves. And when I was knitting, I was like, wait, my sleeves are not that narrow. I don't know why everyone else have narrow sleeves. I have no idea. Anyway, okay, I did another alteration. So I have a problem. I'm slouching a lot. So when I make a garment, I usually end up with my back being shorter than my front. When I finished my yoke and I had to knit that part, I think I added 2 rows of short rows in the back, or maybe 3 rows, I don't remember, just to make the back part a little bit longer so it kind of covers my butt. And one more thing that I didn't mention. So I think I was a little bit off gauge, but not too much. But anyway, so the yoke is very long, since also I chose color size 3, since also I'm a very short person, since also my gauge is probably off. So the length of this yoke is 30 centimeters, which is 12 inches. Yeah, so it's a very long item. And if you take your measurement tool and do your 30 centimeters, so you can see if your sweater starts here, somewhere here, it goes really far. I wasn't super worried about that, but to be honest, if you want the sweater to be a little bit tight fitting, I guess you have to go with size 1. But the size only decides how many fishes you fit in the yoke. It doesn't, decrease the size of the length of the fish. So you're still gonna end up with a tight garment and something that's like has a very long yoke. So if you're worried about that, you definitely have to have a good swatch, and you have to figure out how you're gonna not do it too long. Probably you can do some alterations. For example, this fish starts with this part. Maybe you have to like remove some rows on a tail, some rows here. So I would probably remove like a row here, a couple of rows here. So I would probably remove 1 row every 10 rows. And then you have to probably redraw the picture, in some app like a Stitch Fiddle or Chartminder. So in general, that was a really fun project. I liked the color choice. I liked that I actually used the yarn that was in my stash for a while. I like that it was such an easy project. I like that I finally decided to do color work. And also, if I was doing it again, actually, before I started, I didn't even check Ravelry for other projects. I actually did it after I already ordered yarn and after I already decided. But actually, on the Ravelry, there are some like really cool color combos. So if you're looking for ideas what colors to use, I will add some photos in the background, in the background of this video, so you can check them out while I'm talking. But also I have to say that I chose, it's not exactly black and white. It's kind of like a graphite, they call this color graphite. I actually like this color choice because since it's a very rustic sweater, I was afraid if it's gonna be like a certain colors, I might not be able to, fit it. But actually, this one is kind of more natural. If I was doing it again, I would probably do bright blue and white. That's another good choice. Or like pink, fuchsia, and white. So I would probably play with other colors as well. Obviously, I'm not planning to repeat this sweater. This is too much, too much work. And also probably a few pointers. How do I style this Halibut? I actually mostly styled it in a total black. I don't know. I have hard time finding styles. Like there are many things I don't like. I don't like to just randomly put things on because I have my idea what fits into my personal style and what doesn't. And for this particular type of garment, round yoke, these fishes, very it's very particular look. I feel like the best result I get when I just wear it with black pants, or I was also wearing it with black jeans. And to make it a little bit more exciting, I usually use some colorful sneakers to make it like more fun. Sometimes I was wearing it with a red hat, stuff like this, like to make it a little bit more brighter. And so far, I think it worked the best for me, just to have it like a monochrome look. I don't know if I had any like a PU leather, like, fake leather pants, I would probably wear it as well. That's why I was even thinking, since I have a plan to do more sewing, maybe to make some black or gray PU leather pants. Or I even ordered some samples from, I think, Moods or Kali Fabrics. It's actually really nice, nice textile. Maybe I will use it. Another idea is like if I had some bright pants, I feel like it would look good with like bright red pants or like skirt, long skirt. But I don't really wear skirts as much because since I work with animals, unfortunately I can't do skirts because usually most of the time it's not comfortable because if I trip and fall, that's going to be very uncomfortable. But something bright. I feel like bright purple, like lilac, bright pink. I don't know, for some reason I feel like since it's such a silly design, you kind of want like to wear some silly pants in the bottom, something bright, or just something super basic like black pants. I never style it with other type of pants. I would not wear it with regular jeans because I feel like it's just gonna look boring for my personal style. Not critiquing anyone, don't come after me. But long skirts or those ballerina style like white skirts. I would probably, if I was more fancy than I am, I would probably wear something like this and then maybe have some like black combat boots. That would be kind of cool. Maybe one day I can sew a skirt for myself like that, just using some type of whatever the name of this fabric is. Anyway, okay, I think that's it for today. Now it's time to clean this mess. It's the worst part of being on a camera, being in a public space. I had to clean this because this was such a mess before I started filming. I'm like, you know what? I haven't cleaned it for a month at least. Maybe it's time to clean it since I'm making video. But now it's a mess again. Yeah. In my next videos, I'm planning to talk about knitting machine, my very complicated journey. I actually started making the video. I filmed halfway, but my bird kept screeching and attacking the knitting machine that I got pissed. And at some point, I just stopped filming and I will probably start from scratch. And second topic that I want to talk, I will probably, since this project is very self-drafted, I'm thinking that I will probably try to film how I was, how do I plan this sweater? How do I do all the self-drafting? But yeah, I think I will tell you more about self-drafting this item. I guess that's it for today and see you in my next video. There will be probably another podcast in a month, but between that there will be a video or two. Who knows? I started really, like when I started this channel, I was on a good groove that every weekend, it was my days off, I would make a video. But then in the March of, I think was it February and March, I had no weekends because I was working and I had very like unstable schedule. And sometimes I would have a free day midweek, but my bird didn't want me to film anything. And I was so tired from so many things so I was planning to do more, but I didn't do more. So, but at least something I can promise you, we're going to see each other in the next podcast in a month. But between that, hopefully, we will also see each other. Anyway, thank you for watching this and see you in my next video.
Sunlight, love hearts, taste sweet like cherry tarts.